Rome was the single most important empire that ever graced the world. It brought civilization to many countries that would later form the Western world. The later empires of Spain, Portugal, France and England all derived their language, culture and people from the Roman Empire. As with most things, Rome had very humble beginnings. According to legend, the city was founded by two brothers who were abandoned by their mother, hunted by their king, and fought by all their neighbours. Through strong and steady wars, primarily of defence, Rome grew to encompass almost all of Europe, including territory in the Near East and Africa. The founding of Rome is a piece of history that is unfortunately shrouded in mystery and legend. Most of the historical records of Rome before the year 390 BC were destroyed by invading Gauls. Thus, most of the early years of Roman history were passed down by verbal tales and written down by historians at least a century after the destruction of physical records. It can thus be assumed that the story's main points are generally accurate, but that the details are inventions of time or of mythologizing historians. The story that the Romans believed began in the kingdom of Alba Longa. This was a city-state in central Italy. The king, Procas, died in 794 BC. He was supposed to be succeeded by his eldest son, Numitor, but Numitor was overthrown by his brother Amulius. Procas and his progeny were descendants of the Roman goddess Venus or the Greek goddess Aphrodite. Some other ancestors of theirs included the Greek Trojan hero Aeneas. Numitor's daughter was Rhea Silvia, and she was forced by Amulius to become a Vestal virgin. This would ensure that Numitor's line could have no males who might contest his claim to the throne. According to the historian Livy, Rhea Silvia became pregnant with twin boys. She received a vision which told her these children were conceived in her by Mars, the Roman god of war. Livy himself doubted this, and instead believed a man had forced himself upon her, and that she told the lie to protect herself from execution, which was the typical punishment of virgins who broke their vows. The Greek historian Plutarch believes instead that Mars forced himself upon Rhea Silvia. When Rhea Silvia gave birth to her sons, Amulius was furious, knowing that his plans had been destroyed. He thus ordered that the two sons be killed by one of his servants. The story which Rhea Silvia told about Mars was enough to spare herself from death, and Amulius instead conferred a punishment upon her children. His servant took the children, but rather than having them killed, he floated them down the Tiber River. The two boys washed ashore where a she-wolf, who had recently lost her cubs, nursed them. Livy believes this is actually Latin slang referring to a prostitute, as they were commonly called she-wolves. Eventually, the two boys were found by a shepherd and his wife, Faustulus and Acca Laurentia. The two boys grew to be highly energetic and difficult. They became shepherds like their father. Eventually, a conflict arose between the boys and King Amulius. Remus was taken captive by the king, but he did not know that the boy was the very same one he ordered to be drowned in the Tiber. Romulus formed a band with some of his friends to go and free Remus. Faustulus told Romulus about his origins, that he was the grandson of the true king, and that the current king had ordered him to be killed because of this. Romulus went to Alba Longa and freed his brother. They together overthrew Amulius and put their grandfather back on the throne, but they could have just as easily declared themselves kings. Unfortunately, by now their mother was dead. According to Ovid, another historian, she drowned herself in the Tiber. Numitor, now rightful king of Alba Longa, offered to give his grandsons great privileges in the city. They also refused these offers. They instead left the city to found their own. The brothers had a dispute about where the city would be built. Romulus favoured the Palatine Hill, while Remus preferred the Aventine. The Palatine Hill is the location where the brothers were found by the she-wolf, which is why Romulus favoured this position. Remus favoured the Aventine Hill for its natural properties of defensiveness and proximity to the Tiber. There is a significant amount of debate on what led to the ensuing conflict. Some believe that the brothers held a competition of augury, that is, bird watching, to determine which location the gods preferred for the city. Romulus saw birds first, but Remus saw more birds. Another possibility is that Romulus began to construct a wall in the Palatine. Remus showed disrespect to this wall by jumping over it. Another possibility was that the brothers couldn't decide upon who they would name the city after. Whatever the cause, the brothers soon came into conflict. This led to a physical fight, which Romulus won. Romulus thus named his city Rome and built it on the Palatine Hill. He declared that his city should be a safe haven for refugees from his surrounding Latin cities. Many noblemen from Alba Longa also came to populate the city. This posed the first threat to Roman supremacy. The population of Rome was overwhelmingly male. It had no opportunity for growth. Romulus requested from the Latin cities alliances, and with those alliances, rights for the marriage of the Romans and their women. He hoped they would happily send women and families to his city to bless him with future population growth, with the offer for assistance in military and economics in the future. They refused. The Sabines in particular refused out of fear of the rising of a rival city in the Latium region. Thus, Romulus hatched a plan to kidnap the women of these cities who had betrayed them. He planned a number of festivals around the Neptune celebrations. The cities were excited to see the festivals of his newly built city, and all were invited to attend the festivals. During these festivals, Romulus gave a sign to his men, and they promptly seized the women and kicked the men out of the city. This is all accounted for by Livy. He did not mention the exact number of women kidnapped, but stated that it was more than 30, and that all but one were unmarried. The men were, naturally, furious. The king of the city of Canina left for his city and returned with an organised army. He was met in a field of battle against King Romulus and his own army. He handily crushed Canina and took their city. Upon returning to Rome, Romulus built a temple, the first of Rome, dedicated to Jupiter, giving to the temple the spoils of the king of Canina. Livy quoted him as saying, "To thee I dedicate a sacred precinct, to be a seat for the spoils of honour which men shall bear hither in time to come, following my example, when they have slain kings and the commanders of the enemy." According to the Roman calendar, Romulus celebrated his triumph over Canina on the 1st of March, 752. The same year they defeated the Anfinates and Crustumini. Romans were sent to these cities, and the natives of these cities were also moved to Rome. Finally, the Sabines, who had lost the most women to Rome, organised an army and marched on Rome. The Sabine armies fought a number of skirmishes and major battles in Roman territory. During this time, the Romans worked on consolidating their own army, receiving thousands of soldiers from King Numitor of Alba Longa. Finally, the Sabines marched on Rome with an army of 26,000 men. The Sabines tricked a Vestal virgin named Tarpeia to open the gates of Rome in the night. They offered her gold if she betrayed her city, but, according to Dionysius of Halicarnassus, they instead crushed her to death using their bronze shields. The Romans and Sabines went to fight on the Capitoline and Palatine hills. The river had flooded, so the area between the hills was muddy, causing great difficulty in battle. The battle was fought for days, with a few different skirmishes being fought. The Romans had 5,000 less men, but still the battle was even. The Romans would gain, but then they would lose. Eventually, the Romans were forced to retreat to the base of their citadel. Despite having the high ground, they charged and engaged with the Sabines. They fought valiantly, but eventually their general, Hostus Hostilius, fell, and with him the Roman courage. In the face of this almost certain defeat, Romulus prayed to Jupiter. He declared before his troops that, should they win this battle, he would dedicate a temple to Jupiter on that site. He took up lead of the army himself and managed to swiftly defeat the Sabines, with their general, Metius, being bucked by his horse. The Sabines had much to lose, and though their general was dead, they continued to fight. The kidnapped women then interfered in the battle, placing themselves between the armies and demanding that they reconcile, being now fathers and sons-in-law. The battle was over and peace established. In the aftermath, the Sabines and Romans signed a peace treaty, forever binding the two peoples. The Sabine women remained in Rome with their husbands, and the kingdoms were united into a dual monarchy, with Titus Tatius, king of the Sabines, being declared co-ruler of Rome. Capitoline Hill was also established as being a Sabine colony in Rome. Thus, Rome was established. These early wars with the Latin cities allowed Rome a sturdy foundation for future expansion and economic growth. Unfortunately for us, much of the exact history of the Roman kingdom is lost, and our only sources come from centuries after the fact. Despite this, historians generally accept the major events of myth as being founded in truth, the general points of 7 kings, the establishment of Rome, and the kidnapping of the Sabine women.